Lane Kiffin, the greatest renegade who ever was in college football, he's made another heel turn. Lane Kiffin skips out on Ole Miss not coaching in the college football playoff. He wanted to. He wanted to have his cake and eat it too. He wanted to take the LSU job and coach Ole Miss in the playoff. Ole Miss said, you have to choose, and Lane Kiffin made his choice. He boarded a plane for Baton Rouge, introduced as the new LSU coach on Monday of this week. We will talk about that and all the hires inside the SEC on this edition of SEC Football Unfiltered, our podcast from the USA Today Network. I'm Blake Toppmeyer alongside John Adams. John, we have so much to get to. The SEC Championship game is on Saturday, by the way, in case you'd forgotten. I almost had.
Well, I was talking to a friend last night on the phone. She's a huge Alabama fan, and I was talking and I just happened to mention the game, and she said, "Well, that's in 2 weeks, right?" I said, "No, Kay, it's this week." Really? God, I hadn't
Truly.
even thought about it. Yeah, they're playing.
Yeah, truly. I mean, that
I,
is that sums it up.
well, here's the thing, Blake. Why
Yeah,
not?
that sums
Why
it up, John. Your friend had completely forgotten.
why don't Kalen DeBoer and Kirby Smart have a gentleman's agreement? We'll only play our third teamers in this game. We're in the playoffs. We don't want to risk any injuries because this game really doesn't mean anything unless you can get all excited about seeding.
All right. Well, we've said all we're going to say about the game probably
That's too
until we
much
make it.
already.
Yeah, too much already because we have Lane Kiffin to get to, John. And I want to start with this. We'll get into whether we think Lane Kiffin made a good decision here, whether Ole Miss made a good decision not letting him coach the playoff, et cetera. But I want to start here because there's been a lot of talk the last few days about what this means for college football. A coach who has a chance to coach in the playoff, but when forced to choose, he leaves his team and goes to LSU instead. This is not something you would see in the NFL. The NFL has league rules to prevent this. College football, because of its ecosystem, which is nothing like the NFL, we don't have time to get into all the reasons why, it doesn't operate in the same way the NFL does with its hires, and these hires are made in November, early December. They're not made after the season as it would be in the NFL. But what I want to ask you, John, is, you hear all this talk about, oh, this is bad for the sport. This is a bad look for the sports, bad for the sport, etc. To me, I say, like, good, bad, or otherwise, this just is college football. Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss and Oxford, the fans and students at Oxford going to the airport to give him the middle finger on his way out of town and jeer at him and yell nastiness at him as he leaves. And then Lane Kiffin lands in Baton Rouge and gets a king's welcome at the airport, gets a hero's welcome at the press conference, and he's leaving for a conference rival, and they're going to go back to Ole Miss next year and play. And the mustard bottles, you better lock them down in the stadium. And, it'll be the biggest game that weekend. To me, maybe it's unsightly now, but to me, this just is college football. This right here is the epitome of college football.
It's wildly entertaining. It's frustrating, agonizing, ecstatic at times, depending on what side you are on. But you can't deny it's wildly entertaining. You don't know what's coming, and the whole thing. The Lane Kiffin, he's become the face of college football in this era. He is the face of college football. Checks out on a playoff team. So somebody tried to run him off the road when he was driving to the airport. And the FBI is supposedly investigating and offering a reward for the criminals that did that.
I don't even
I'm
know at
sure.
this point what's a joke and what's real,
Yeah,
John. I
I
think
know.
you're joking, but who knows at this point?
No, but it's almost like the real world of college football is a parody of the Dr. Pepper commercial of Fansville. This is more bizarre than what Fansville is.
You nailed it. I was that's why we have you on the show, John. You put it more succinctly and in a pithy way. What I was trying to say, and that this is the epitome of college football. You nailed it right there. This is, in the way that Fansville tries to be. No, reality is more than the parody. Um,
Sure.
so you
And,
nailed it right there.
and see, in Lane Kiffin, you think about all the elements. I mean, he's king of the portal,
Hmm.
self-professed king of the portal, albeit, but still king of the portal. And he's a perfect fit for LSU. He's got that scoundrel's reputation. And I grew up in Louisiana, lived a good part of my life there. Uh, they love scoundrels down there. Checkered past, bring it on. I mean, Edwin Edwards, if they could have it their way, he would have been governor for life. Uh, and he basically said to the FBI, come and get me if you think you can. It did, and it got him, and he went to prison. But he would have been elected anytime he ran. If he'd have run from his prison cell, he would have got it. So Lane Kiffin, he might be. They might put a bounty out on him in Mississippi right now. And there's a few people in Tennessee that would hunt him down too. But in Louisiana right now, he he's king of the state. He's not just king of the portal.
Yeah, I wrote about this in a story at usatoday.com yesterday. But Verge Osbury, the LSU AD, was talking about the flight into Mississippi to pick up the package, to pick up the prize, Lane Kiffin. And the plan had been that LSU's plane was going to fly into Tupelo, which is about 50 miles from Oxford. Of course, there's Ole Miss fans in Tupelo, but it's not ground zero. And so they were going to pick up the prize, Lane Kiffin and Tupelo. Well, after Verge Osbury gets on the plane, he learns plans have changed, and they're flying into Oxford itself. Verge said his response was, "We're going where? Oxford? They're going to have missiles flying at us." And of course, he was exaggerating a little bit, but only just a little bit, right? And so, and we could say, like, we could sympathize with Ole Miss fans, et cetera, but should have known what you were signing up for with Lane Kiffin. And I have to say, I think if Ole Miss could wind back 6 years ago and hire Lane Kiffin all over again, even knowing how it ended,
Yeah.
don't you think they would do it, John? I mean, think about all the success he brought to them, elevated their program. Yes, when he had to choose in the end, he did not choose Ole Miss. But do you really think if you could rewind the clock to 6 years ago, Ole Miss would hire someone else? I don't. I think you'd do it all over again, and you'd boo him on and curse him on the way out the door. And when he comes back on an LSU sideline, and now Pete Golding, who they've elevated to the head coach, he's your new hero. You're going to throw your support behind him in the playoff. But I don't know. I think they'd do it all over again. Do you think otherwise?
Oh yeah, they no doubt about it. And Lane Kiffin, going back to his spectacular 1 year at Tennessee, where we left amid controversy and uh, the sin of burning mattresses very,
Mm-hmm.
very prominent in the air, and all the hoopla that came with that. He did make Tennessee football better in that 1 year. He was only there 1 year, but he made the team better, and he made Ole Miss better for a 6 year period. Uh, what would Ole Miss have done otherwise? That's only conjecture. We don't know. But if you look at the history, you would say probably wouldn't have done that well without Lane Kiffin. But I certainly understand the reaction now. I wouldn't expect anything else. But he's not just leaving, he's leaving you for a rival.
Mm-hmm.
I guess
Mm-hmm.
it could have been worse. He could have stayed at State and go to Mississippi State in Starkville, would have been worse. But LSU's a long-standing rival. Their Board of States, a long-standing rival with Ole Miss. And he's saying, Ole Miss, you're just not good enough, but LSU is. I'll see you down the road.
John, Lane Kiffin's been on this redemption tour for several years now. He's he's curated an image. He's very good at media messaging, and ESPN even came out with a documentary in the middle of this season that was a very glowing portrayal of Lane Kiffin. And so he wasn't just winning games at Ole Miss, but it seemed like a polishing, a revival of his image after he left Tennessee after 1 year, after he'd been fired on the tarmac of Southern Cal, after he was successful at Alabama, but was ultimately fired there by Nick Saban before the national championship game after he took the job at FAU, because Nick didn't want Lane around anymore after he was headed to FAU. And so, but then there was this 9-year run where Lane really kind of rehabbed his image. 3 seasons at FAU where he was very successful, and came to Ole Miss, got his family back together. Layla Kiffin, his ex-wife, was at the press conference yesterday in Baton Rouge, introduced. His son Knox was there. Landry, one of his 2 daughters, was there. He's got his family back together. Do you think that this tears down all of that work he did polishing his image over the years? Do you think that's gone now, gone up in smoke? Do you think it doesn't really matter? Do you think some of that's still intact, or how do you think this heel turn and this pivot toward LSU affects any of that, if at all?
I think it blows it up completely. But one thing I will say, and I don't know, I can't, I'm not a mind reader. I don't know how changed Lane Kiffin is. I don't know what's in his heart, what's in his mind, whether he's devoutly religious or whatever now. I can't speak to that. But he has lost weight. So I would say he's improved his diet. And my guess is he doesn't drink as much as he did, because it's hard to lose weight if you're drinking a lot. But going to LSU, that old image would have worked just fine. They don't need
revive the old image. Never mind
no,
with this.
The old image, bring it back. The 1-loss record, keep the record, bring back the old image. You're good.
Yeah, it's interesting. What I've said on that, John, and I've spoken to Lane many times over the years, written a number of stories on him, is I think some things can be true. You can make some personal improvements. You can get your family back together. You can make some evolution. Some of those things can be true, and also you can have a very large ego. You can have a renegade, a rebel in your core. And when something like LSU comes along and you think, boy, I've coached at Tennessee before and I left them after 1 year. Should I have done that? Then I went to Southern Cal and I got fired. That hurts a man's ego, and then you build yourself back up and you think, boy, I've never been better than I am now. Wonder what I could do if I got back to one of those monster programs again. You can improve yourself a little bit personally. That can be true. And also you could have that temptation in there, that ego telling you, you're doing pretty darn good at Ole Miss. Just think what you could do at LSU. So I land somewhere in the middle. I think, I believe some of this story, maybe don't believe all of it. And what I really believe is that there was never a chance Lane Kiffin was going to retire from Ole Miss at the ripe old age of 65, sitting in his rocking chair and waiting to be invited out for the statue unveiling at Vaught Hemingway, and they were going to rename the field Kiffin Field. That was never going to be the final chapter of the Lane Kiffin story.
No, a Lane Kiffin book just wouldn't read that way. But like I said, at LSU, they should have had a sign at the airport when he landed there in Baton Rouge with a big banner, "Renegades welcome."
So true. Verge Osbury, the LSU AD, at the press conference on Monday said Lane is a big enough personality to operate in a state full of big personalities, and I thought that was very well said. What do we think of the hire, John? Do we think this is a slam dunk, a home run for LSU. I mean, we've talked about these different coaching searches along the way. We thought Lane would be a home run fit for Florida if they could get him. They tried, they failed. And we talked about him for LSU. How would you grade this hire for LSU? Could they have done any better than Lane Kiffin? And do you have any concerns about this hire?
I think for LSU, it's an A plus. I don't think LSU could have done better. We often talk, excuse me, about how good a fit a coach is and how little that means sometimes. Sometimes it might matter. A lot of times it doesn't. But Lane Kiffin is also, as we've said, he's a great fit for the culture there. Uh, and it just his whole personality, as the AD said, a state of big personalities. Real. Didn't say it's a state of great people, and we're proud to add another great person to our state. No, it's a state
Although
of
you're
great.
from there, John, and I know you think the world of them.
Yes, I
It's your
do.
home
I
state.
love I love Louisiana. I'm going there next week, and so yeah, he's a great fit, and I think he's a terrific offensive coach. But I don't know that he's going to win a national championship at LSU.
Ooh,
And
okay.
I know that's what's supposed to be part of the deal. I don't think you can count on winning a national championship. There's only one of those a year. And there's some other schools out there. LSU certainly one of them that has all the resources it takes, but sometimes the ball doesn't bounce your way. And I go back to last year's Ole Miss team, 2024 team. I know Lane Kiffin thinks it's very obvious. He thinks the Ole Miss team is good, but we wouldn't win a champion. We wouldn't win the national championship this year. We're going in the playoffs, but we wouldn't win it. If he was convinced Ole Miss would win a national championship this year, he wouldn't have left.
Completely
But
agree.
but if you go back to last year, I thought that Ole Miss team had as much talent just about anybody. I think it would have been a close match with Ohio State. That team didn't always play up to expectations. It lost to Kentucky. And with everything on the line, it goes to Florida at the end of the year. Playoffs there for the taking, and it just goes belly up and loses the game and is left out of the playoffs. And that's the same team that manhandled Georgia. The talent was there. You had national championship talent last year, and you didn't make the playoff. And that's not something LSU fans would want to hear or want to think about, but it's a fact.
I think you're right, John, in the point you made about the national championship and would Kiffin have left if he thought in his heart of hearts that Ole Miss had a good shot to win the national championship? I think you're right. I don't think he would have left. I think he would have, if forced to choose. I mean, what he really wanted to do was take the LSU job and coach in the playoff. But
Sure.
once he learned and had to face reality, he couldn't do both. I think he would have stayed and re-upped with Ole Miss if he thought in his heart of hearts that team had a good shot to win the national championship. So I think this decision was twofold. Lane, when asked to explain the decision, Lane gave a lot of reasons. He said he talked to God and prayed on it, and that's what he learned from those talks. And maybe he did. A lot of people pray on decisions, and I'm not saying he didn't. That could be true. He said he talked to Pete Carroll, and Pete Carroll told him that the late Monty Kiffin, Lane's dad, whom worked with Pete Carroll, knew Pete very well, that Monty Carroll would have told Lane to take the job. Lane also said that Nick Saban told him to take the job. So Lane was offering a lot of reasons as to why he took job. I'm not saying that those conversations didn't happen, but I think really the reasons are twofold. One, ego. Two, he didn't think he could win the national championship at Ole Miss, and he thought in the future going forward that he can and will at LSU. So I think those are the two reasons for this choice. I'm wondering though what you think this does to Ole Miss in the playoff. I'm not so much asking about the committee in the rankings, but how do you think losing the coach, going to Pete Golding, affects their chances? Because we've seen other times where a team can rally around the interim and with that fuel behind them, play better than they ever had before. Now, Pete Golding's not the interim; he's the head man. They've given him the job full time. The defensive coordinator under Lane Kiffin has been promoted to the full time post. And I would point out that when Nick Saban, they're a very different situation, but when Nick Saban vamoosed from Michigan State for LSU in 1999, he hopped on a plane, skipped out on his Spartans. Spartans won their bowl game under an interim coach. Very different situation. But I wonder what you think this does to Ole Miss in the playoff. Can this be a rallying point, or do you think this is a torpedo that just sinks them now in the playoff?
Well, I think it can be a rallying point, but I don't think it can carry them through the playoffs. It's not just that Lane Kiffin's leaving. The Charlie Weiss Jr. is leaving too.
Well,
As
some
his
new
off-
news on that front, John.
oh,
As we speak, happening in real
oh,
time as we record this on a Tuesday afternoon.
okay.
From our some real time news here from our colleague Matt Hayes at USA Today, reporting that Charlie Weiss will be the offensive coordinator for Ole Miss in the playoffs.
That's good news for Ole Miss.
Yes, it is.
It's very good news because I think he's very adept at that. Now, Lane Kiffin has a lot of input on what plays Ole Miss is going to run. I mean
Oh, sure.
that's for sure. But
I should
you
say,
got
John,
your
Charlie Weiss Jr. for our listeners who maybe didn't catch it. It's not Charlie Weiss the senior, Charlie Weiss. It's Charlie Weiss Jr. who's going to be the OC, who was the OC under Lane Kiffin. I just
I
realized
meant to
I
say
probably
junior.
should have clarified that.
Okay,
Perhaps everybody knows, but
I thought I said junior, but maybe I did.
no,
Yeah.
I was the one that said it wrong. But
Oh, okay.
anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
It's not like they're
He
calling up
would.
old Charlie Weiss and getting
Well,
him in
his dad would have given a veteran presence
there. Yeah.
to the offense entering the playoffs. But no, so you got your defensive leader and your offensive leader. I think that gives Ole Miss a better shot. I could see it. I could see it winning a game in the playoff. But the big question to me, will Ole Miss be penalized for not having its coach in the seeding? Will it be penalized?
Yeah, and we're recording this on a Tuesday afternoon. So as our listeners listen to it, I guess they already know the answer to that because the updated rankings have come out.
Good
So
point. Okay.
yeah, we'll move on. I want to I want to reflect on something though from the Ole Miss perspective, John, because we talked in the lead up. What would Ole Miss do? Would they let Lane coach in the playoff? And I was of the mind, maybe at first I thought, well, you have to let him coach in the playoff, right? And I think you were of that mind too. My thinking evolved along the way. The more and more I thought about it, I thought this would be like you're getting a divorce, you've wedded the new bride, but you tell your ex, I'm going to hang around in the house for 6 weeks. I'm married to that gal down the street now, but I'm still living in our old house. You okay with that? No, that's not happening. And it's different because Lane Kiffin, he didn't go to the NFL. He didn't go to a Big Ten job, which would be problematic, but still different. He went to an SEC rival. Do you really want him working in your offices when you know he's probably going to try to take some of these players with him to LSU? He's probably going to try to take some members of the staff with him to LSU. This is a conference rival. The other half of the Magnolia Bowl, you're going to be still playing this team annually every year, even in the 9-game conference schedule. I don't know. The more I thought about it, John, the more I thought this would be really odd to have Lane Kiffin juggling these two SEC jobs at one time. I mean, when Ole Miss stepped out for their playoff game, it would be introducing LSU coach Lane Kiffin coaching the team, right? Isn't that a little odd look? LSU's coach is coaching your team in the playoff. That the more I thought about it, I thought, I don't know how you could have done that. And the other thing, John, you would have had a home playoff game and there would have been 65,000 Ole Miss fans booing the coach on the Ole Miss sideline. That I don't know. I thought at first that Ole Miss should really consider letting Lane coach in the playoff. In the end, I think they probably made the right choice in saying, no, you can't have it both ways. Pete Golding's going to coach in the playoff come what may. What do you say?
Yeah, I kind of followed that line of thinking too. I thought more about just the idea of the rivalry because I grew up with that wild rivalry. My hometown was 20-minute drive from the Mississippi border. So, and I'm 35 miles from Baton Rouge. So, no, plenty of when I was growing up because Ole Miss was really good back then in the late 50s, early 60s. And so it was a huge rivalry. It was a national level 1 versus 2 type rivalry there for 2 years. So those kind of passions run deep. And yeah, it would have been really kind of hard to do it. It just, it would, I wonder, maybe if he had taken the job at Penn State, you
Right.
could do it.
Yeah, I
You could
agree.
do it. And I would like to think if I'd been in Lane Kiffin's shoes, I would have said, I would have told LSU, I want to take the job, but I don't want to announce it. I want to finish what I started with this team. And if LSU said no, we're not doing that, then I'd said, okay, well, good luck with your coach, and I would have stayed. That's what I would have done.
Hmm.
And but I would have, I guess, in a way, tried to have it both ways. And I don't think LSU would have allowed that. But if that's, I just would have a hard time leaving a team that has helped put me in this position to get almost any football job I want. And also, yeah, it doesn't have as much obvious talent as Ohio State, certainly not on defense, but strange things happen in games and injuries. Who knows? What if Ohio State loses its quarterback to injury in the Big Ten championship game? Uh, what if the next best team, Indiana, Oregon, whoever you think it is, Georgia, gets upset in the first round? Maybe Ole Miss could win it. You just don't know about that kind of stuff, and so I would have had a hard time leaving.
Nick Saban, I referenced him leaving Michigan State when his team was ranked 10th in the nation. Different playoff construct back then. I don't know whether Nick Saban would have left if a 12-team playoff was in place or not. I kind of think he would have. I think he would have taken the LSU job anyway, but that's just speculation. Um, but different situation back then. But it worked out marvelously for Nick Saban. He went to LSU and won a national championship there. Went to the NFL, didn't work. Went to Alabama, became the GOAT. So we can say Nick Saban quit on his team at Michigan State, sort of in a similar fashion 26 years ago, but it worked fabulously for Nick Saban. Um, how do you think we'll remember this move for Lane Kiffin, John? 10 years down the road, will we say Lane Kiffin made the best choice of his career when, hard though it may have been, he left Ole Miss and that playoff team behind to go to LSU? Or will we say Lane Kiffin probably made a career mistake by leaving Ole Miss for LSU? Because I could see it going either way. I don't know that there's a clear leader in that clubhouse. Do you lean one way or the other? What are we going to say about this 10 years from now?
That's a coin flip. Um, I I think when you're putting everything on a championship, and that's what we're talking about here. You're going to LSU because you think you've got a better chance to win a national championship. That's what I believe. That's my take on it. Brian Kelly left Notre Dame and went to LSU because he thought he had a better chance of winning a national championship. And I thought he made the right move. But now I see what Brian Kelly did at LSU. Into his 4th season, 2/3 through, he gets fired. Um, I think this will prove to be the wrong move for Lane Kiffin.
Last thing, John. Lane's been asked. I've asked him. Ross Dellinger of Yahoo asked him Monday at his press conference about what Lane believes this does and means for his legacy. The reality of legacy is that individuals don't get to author their own legacies. Those legacies kind of come out after you're long and gone, and it's the great orators of our time who kind of come up with your legacy after you go. But I've kind of thought about what this means for Lane's legacy, and it certainly tarnishes his image at Ole Miss. There's no denying that he'll never be looked the same at Ole Miss again. But I thought, as far as his legacy on the whole, I'm not so sure that this really changes his legacy. I mean, these last 72 hours are his legacy. They are what Lane Kiffin is. He's arguably the most polarizing figure in college football history. He's already left Tennessee in the middle of the night. Now he's left another SEC school. He's the lightning rod, but he has enough charisma and talent to make everyone in one state love him, even as everyone in another state hates him after he's twisted the knife on him. And he's the rebel who doesn't bend to norms. He's the guy who is going to go first and leave his team, for better or worse, on the doorstep of the playoffs. So for me, this didn't really maybe change Lane's legacy, because I think this was what his legacy was always going to be. The renegade was always going to come out. So for me, this is true to his legacy. He's the lightning rod who's beloved and the king in one state and the villain elsewhere, and a big enough of a personality to stoke that variety of emotion and opinions kind of across the college football ecosystem.
Yeah, it's like if his legacy were a two-story house already, he added a third floor to it, I think,
Mm-hmm.
with this. I just think you're right. He really enhanced what we thought his legacy would be. He enhanced it by this move. He didn't hurt it. As I said earlier, I think he is the face of college football now.
Which is amazing because he has 0 career college football playoff wins. But I wrote about this, John, in a piece for USA Today. I said, like, this is what college football is not about the postseason. I mean, we talk about the playoff a lot on this podcast. We write about it, but college football, you know this better than I do. It's never been a sport that revolves around the postseason. College football revolves around the rivalries, and it has the best regular season in all of sports. I think college football has always had a problem with its postseason, and it's gotten better in the playoff, but it's never really been about the postseason in college football. So, in a lot of ways, I just think this is another chapter in what college football is, and that rivalry between LSU and Ole Miss. Boy, that's going to be as hot as it's been probably since you were a kid, John. Maybe
Oh,
hotter.
it definitely will be. And I think, Blake, I used to hear, I remember this is kind of an old take. It used to be with the more established powerhouse programs. I don't know how much this exists now, where you'd say, well, uh, Texas wouldn't lower itself to hire the football coach at Baylor because Texas puts itself above all the other schools in Texas. Back in the day. So, but I always thought, well, no, that doesn't make sense to me, because to me, if you're playing, it's a rival program, it's in your conference, and you think that's the best coach, and you can help yourself and hurt the competition, it's a good move. So to me, LSU made a great move. It hurt a rival, a permanent rival in the SEC, hurt that program, helped its own cause. So win-win for LSU.
All right. Well, there's been so many hires in in the SEC, 6 of them. If you can keep up, we've had a hard time even keeping up, and we do this for a living. Some would say we do it well. We don't care about what the others say. But by my count, John, I got 6 coaches now hired in the SEC. As we like to do on the pod, we're going to do a round of love it, like it, or no thanks. So the dust has settled. We played this on the front end. We're going to play it on the back end. This is, as always, from the school's perspective. From the school's perspective, do you love this hire? Do you like this hire? Do you say, no thanks on this hire? So let's start Lane Kiffin from LSU's perspective. Love it, like it, no thanks.
Love it. As I said, great fit. You hurt your rival. Um, Big offense. He's going to have plenty of, yeah, he's really good in the portal, and LSU has the portal resources. It has the NIL resources to go in the portal and be successful. So, yeah, LSU couldn't have done any better than this. Love it.
About Will Stein. Kentucky, by the way, lost amid the Lane Kiffin drama, has parted with Mark Stoops. Will Stein, who is the coordinator at Oregon, a Louisville native, played at Louisville. Will Stein now is the coach at Kentucky. You love it, you like it, no thanks.
We need another category here. I don't have a clue.
I don't have a
but
clue.
but no, but I will say I like it simply because Kentucky football was headed in the wrong direction under Mark Stoops. I think anybody with any reasonable knowledge of college football can see that. But I just didn't think Kentucky would spend $38 million on a coach, on a failed coach, and pay him to leave. That's money that could go to your basketball program. Why spend it on? Just let him stay there, try to make a bowl game every now and then, and wait for basketball season. So I didn't think Kentucky would do that. So yeah, you got a hot shot play caller from Oregon. Uh, I hate to tell Will, but he won't be getting the same offensive players at Kentucky that he had at Oregon. But maybe his magical play calling ability will carry the Wildcats through. So they just got beat by 41 points by Louisville and 25 or 30 by Vanderbilt. So
you
what have
had
you
to do
got?
something. Yeah, what
You
do you got
had
to
to do
lose?
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I
So
think I'm
I
two for
like
two.
it.
Yeah, I
I
like
like
this one. I love the Lane Kiffin one from LSU's perspective. I agree with you on both. Alex Golish at Auburn. Alex Golish, formerly the coordinator at Tennessee under Josh Heupel, was the coordinator for that 2022 team that brought Tennessee back from the depths and delivered that storied season. He's been at South Florida for 3 years. South Florida started really hot this year, didn't finish quite so well, not going to be headed for the college football playoff. Seemed like they maybe could get there at one time as the G5 representative. That's not going to work out for them. But he went 9-3 this year. South Florida was 1-11 the year before he arrived, and he helped elevate that program. Now he's at Auburn. You love it, like it, no thanks for Auburn, Alex Golish.
A very weak like it. I hadn't seen enough of him. I mean, he doesn't have that strong of a head coaching resume, and the way he managed that Memphis game with everything on the line, and it's not gonna play well at Jordan Hare. I know that. And also, though, I look at Auburn's track record for hiring coaches. Do you kind of get the feeling now that Auburn's just no matter what it does, it'll be the wrong move?
A little bit. The reason I like this one a little bit, John, is just because it's interesting. If you're Florida and you think you're getting Lane Kiffin, no matter who you hire, you think, well, we made a bad hire. That Florida fans are dealing with that right now. If you're an Auburn fan and you thought you were getting DJ Durkin, the defensive coordinator under Hugh Freeze, which on the day of the Iron Bowl, reports were leaking out that DJ Durkin had a chance of being the promoted to the head job, going from interim to the head job. If you think you're getting DJ Durkin, who was fired at Maryland in just an absolute mess of a situation, player died in a preseason workout. There was an internal investigation that found the strength coach there. The findings of the investigation I could best summarize as the strength coach was a holy terror. And Durkin was not winning games anyway. He was fired. Now he's a very good defensive coordinator, at least was for Auburn. But the idea of someone who has a 12-17 career record and was fired at Maryland becoming your head coach, that wouldn't have inspired the natives. So I guess I kind of like this just because I thought Boy, are they going
Yeah.
to wind up with DJ Durkin? No, Alex Golish. I'd rather roll the dice on Alex Golish and hope to win your bet than go with DJ Durkin.
Great for Alex Golish that that such speculation was building there, because then the fan base, well, at least we didn't hire some losing head coach. We
Right?
hired a winning coach, so maybe he'll do well there.
Yeah,
But
Florida
it's
should have leaked out that they were going to hire Will Muschamp, bring him back, and then all of a sudden, John Sumrall would have been looking a little bit better to Florida fans.
oh.
Yeah. All right. So you gave a weak like it to Alex Golish. I won't
But
put
you don't
your
have weak like it's not a category, so I just have to say like it. Just
okay.
take it at face value.
All right. How about John Sumrall at Florida? That's who Florida wound up with, was a Tulane coach who was behind Lane Kiffin, the second hottest name on the market, the hottest G5 name. I think Florida fans are a little underwhelmed because they went the G5 route last time with Billy Napier. And but doesn't, just because it didn't work for Billy Napier and he was from the Group of Five coaching ranks, doesn't mean it won't work for John Sumrall. His career record is 41-11. He was at Troy, then he was at Tulane. Love it, like it, no thanks from Florida's perspective hiring John Sumrall.
I like it. Kevin Brockway in Gainesville wrote a column in which he pointed out this Florida lost the press conference, and I agree with him on that. He's not kind of what Florida fans expect, but he might be what Florida fans need. It might be what that program needs. That program, to me, and I really don't know that much about him other than his record, but as we said before, he really looks like he's right out of central casting for a tough football coach, hard nosed SEC, no nonsense football coach. And I think Florida needs some of that right now. And I know he's nothing like Urban Meyer or Steve Spurrier. Those are the two great coaches at Florida, and they are far and away above all the other coaches that have coached there. But he's kind of got that look that Charlie Pell had years ago when he went there in the late 70s when the program was a mess, and he turned it into a really strong program. And he was a hard-nosed, tough guy. Broke a few NCAA rules along the way, but who cares about NCAA rules now? There are no rules.
And what are
So,
those?
yeah, what are those? So, somebody wrote me an email the other day and said, I never read anything about players being academically ineligible anymore. Is that because they're getting paid? Really? So yeah. So I like this hire.
Okay. Okay.
What do you
Uh,
think?
I think I like it. I think anything other than Lane Kiffin is it's just hard. It's hard to win the press conference if you're not trotting out Lane Kiffin. That's just really difficult. You've kind of backed yourself in a corner when the fan base thinks you're going to get Lane Kiffin. Um, but I didn't think they were going to get Lane Kiffin once LSU entered the fray. I thought Lane would probably wind up at LSU. We said that last week when we were making our predictions. Or if not, I thought he'd stay at Ole Miss. I didn't think Florida was going to win those sweepstakes. So once you're faced with that reality, I think Summerall's a solid choice. I was on the Jeff Brom bandwagon
Yeah.
at Louisville, the guy that just beat Mark Stoops by 41 points, who did a tremendous job at Purdue and is an offensive-minded coach, which I think would do well at Florida right now. They need some of that. I would have rather had, I think, someone like that who maybe, okay, you can't get Lane Kiffin. Could you have gotten someone who was proven at the Power 4 level instead of going to the Group of Five? I don't know. But that doesn't mean I don't like John Sumrall. I don't think he's a sure thing. I don't think he's a home run, but I don't think he's a whiff either. So I like it. We're in lockstep here. How about another one that's not being celebrated by the fan base? Ryan Silverfield, the Memphis coach, winds up at Arkansas. Love it, like it, no thanks.
Like it. In today's climate with all these coaches and more successful programs than Arkansas looking for a coach, the Razorbacks were just way down the list. I think it got a coach who's won uh, in FBS football, so I guess that means something. He's an offensive-minded guy. Uh, you can't really promote Bobby Petrino. He didn't win a game as an interim coach, not an SEC game. So I just think that's probably as good as Arkansas can do. Do you? Was there anybody out there you think that Arkansas could have gotten that would be better?
Well, they lost out on Golish. I think I might rather have Golish, who went to Auburn, than Silverfield, even though they came from the same conference. And the thing about Ryan Silverfield is, and I don't think this is a terrible hire, but I can see why Arkansas fans are struggling to celebrate this. You go back to before the 2023 season, John. Ryan Silverfield at Memphis was in a win or be fired season. The first 3 years of his tenure had not gone well. It did not start to get rolling there at Memphis until year 4. And the other thing I wonder about Ryan Silverfield at Memphis, he enjoys some of the best resources, particularly in this NIL era, in that conference, in that American conference. Memphis is one of the haves and not the have nots. Now he's going to a school. Arkansas is not paupers by any means, but they got to fund John Calipari's basketball program. They care about baseball there as well at Arkansas. So now you're going to be one of the smaller fish in the big pond versus, well, frankly, you're going to be one of the smaller fish in a pond full of sharks versus
Yeah.
before he was one of the big fish in a smaller pond at Memphis, and he never won the conference championship there. The last 3 years, he did reasonably well, but he would lose some of the big games and not win the conference titles. So I can see why Arkansas fans are underwhelmed by this. I think Golish, if they could have landed him, um, would have maybe been a little bit splashier. I also think Eric Morris, who is the air raid coach at North Texas from the Mike Leach tree, who Oklahoma State hired, and is sort of one of these quarterback gurus. We know we love those gurus, don't we, John?
Oh yes,
Yes,
big
love
fan.
those gurus. Well, he'd worked with Cam Ward and with Patrick Mahomes. He's worked the quarterback at North Texas, whose name is escaping me, but leads that conference in passing. I don't know. I might have taken a chance on the quarterback guru if I was Arkansas, even though he doesn't have as long of an FBS track record as what Ryan Silverfield does. North Texas is 11-1 this year, and I don't know, that the air raid at Arkansas I think would be a little bit of an interesting twist for them, and he's from Texas. Texas important recruiting terrain for Arkansas. So and if Eric Morris went to Oklahoma State, I would have thought he would have been intrigued by an SEC job at Arkansas. So I think a couple guys from Ryan Silverfield's own conference might have moved the needle a little bit more than he would have at Arkansas. So I don't love this one. I guess I would probably say no thanks of the three options we're giving ourselves.
Yeah, you're making me change my mind.
I talked you into that guru, didn't I? We love the
Yeah.
gurus.
How about this? What do you think? Where will Arkansas be in football 4 years from now? Where do you think it'll be?
I think they'll be hiring another coach. You?
I do too.
Yeah. And maybe they would have been if they would have hired Eric Morse or Alex
Yeah.
Golish. That is a difficult job. It's not the most difficult job in the SEC, but it is a difficult job considering the conference that they are in. Last one, John. The interesting circumstances led to this, but Pete Golding now is the head coach at Ole Miss. Not just the interim coach; he's the head man, promoted from defensive coordinator. I think in the short term, that was a necessary move for Ole Miss to provide stability for the playoff. We've talked about that. But overall, all things considered, you love it, you like it. No thanks, Pete Golding, Ole Miss.
I like it simply because of the short-term possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have. But I think there's a good chance he would have left if he hadn't gotten the job.
And then what do you
And
do?
then what do you
Yeah.
do in the playoffs? I still, maybe I'm being too idealistic here, but I still would like to think Ole Miss has a chance in the playoffs. Maybe that's flawed logic there, but I would like to give this team a chance. And so by keeping your coordinators, uh, it does give you a chance. So I like it. What do you think?
I think I like it. When you consider, we have to look at all these things through the lens of reality, right? Ideal situation would have been Ole Miss doesn't lose Lane Kiffin, but they did, and they are headed to the playoff. And you got to keep things intact for the playoff run, and not just throw in the towel on this season. Now, like, you could have just made him the interim coach and said we're going to do a search after the season. I don't know if that holds it together. I also think, given the fact that all these other schools had already made their hires by the time Kiffin announced his decision and it was official that Ole Miss wasn't going to be able to keep him, who was left on the market that you were going to be able to get if you're Ole Miss? John Sumrall was already gone. He was at Florida. Some of these other guys were already gone. And so when you look at the reality of the situation, I think I like this for Ole Miss. I don't know how they could have played it much better. Now, we haven't seen the details of the contract come out. I would hope that Ole Miss was smart enough not to give him a Brian Kelly contract, a 10-year guaranteed deal, right? You don't give him a lifetime deal. You want to. I think the way I like this hire more is if it's a shorter term contract, where the buyout is not egregious. If you got to wriggle out of this thing a couple years down the road and say, hey, we tried it. It was the right decision for the short term, but it didn't work for the long term, and you're starting over in a couple years. You hope for the best, and if it doesn't work, you don't pin yourself in a financial corner. So, but without knowing the terms of the contract, assuming they were smart on that end, I would think that this is about the best they could do given the situation, and maybe it works there. That's it wasn't so long ago, John, that in this conference, hiring up and coming coordinators was kind of the trendy thing to do, and then the industry got away for that for whatever reason. But as recently as 5 years ago, someone like Pete Golding, in any circumstance, would have been the type of guy you were thinking about as head coaching material. Remember, this was someone who for several years was the defensive coordinator under Nick Saban. Now, Alabama fans at times were frustrated with Pete Golding, but wasn't that the reality for anyone who came after Kirby Smart? Like, once you've had Kirby as your defensive coordinator, you weren't going to like anybody who came after him. And I think history has smiled a little bit upon Pete Golding's tenure as defensive coordinator there at Alabama. And then he goes to Ole Miss, and it was dependent on the talent level he had at a particular year. But that defense last year that Pete Golding had was pretty nails. So he would have been in a different time and place 5 years ago. He would have been the type of guy who would have been popping up on hot boards anyway. It's just that now SEC schools, for the most part, aren't hiring coordinators anymore. But hey, the guy at Georgia, he'd never been a head coach before, and I think he's doing pretty good, don't you?
Well, another move for Ole Miss, another possibility, based on what follow LSU's lead and hire Jeff Lebby from Mississippi State.
I think I would rather have Pete Golding than Jeff Lebby.
Jeff Lebby hasn't dazzled me so far.
Yeah, I think I'd rather take a chance on give Pete Golding a good offensive coordinator. That he's going to have to nail his offensive coordinator hire. But if he can nail the offensive coordinator hire, I'm curious to see how this works out, particularly in the playoff. I think they're going to be America's team in the playoff, John.
Oh.
I mean, their coach leaves. They got this bearded, barrel-chested guy now on the sidelines, Pete Golding. Yeah, I think they're America's team now. I don't know if that's worth anything. Ask the Cowboys how it's gone being America's team. But that's what it's going to be. Ole Miss in the playoff. America's team.
Can America's team have a Colonel Reb mascot in its closet?
I don't think the mascot's coming back out. No, I don't think so. And I don't know if America's team is can beat the Buckeyes either. You can be America's team and not beat the Buckeyes. All right, John. Let's get to our much anticipated picks. Your record, you were 4-1 last week. You're an absolute heater. You're pulling away from me. You are 37-33 for the season. I had a good week by my meager standards. I was 3-2. I'm creeping up on 500. I'm 34 36 on the season. How we're going to do it this week, we are going to pick the 4 Power 4 conference championship games, and we're going to have our lock of the week. So, John, how about your P4 championship picks as you look to extend your lead on me and your lock of the week?
Okay, let's start out with Texas Tech and BYU.
Mm-hmm.
Texas Tech given 12.5. I watched their regular season matchup, and I don't have any problem giving 12.5. I'll give them 13.5. Texas Tech is just better.
We're going to, instead of lumping our picks together, I think this is a better format. We just each pick them at the same time. I'm going to match you and pick Texas Tech as well. I, too, watched that regular season game. I, too, came away thinking Texas Tech by at least 2 touchdowns. Also, BYU's coach, as we record this, Kalani Sitake, is in the headlines as being a top candidate for Penn State. You never know how drama and distraction and speculation affects a team, but I don't think you would crave that if you're BYU going into this. So, yes, I agree with you. Give the points, take Texas Tech.
I don't think you should crave that either if you're a Penn State fan, but that's another story.
Oh, Kalani Sitake's done a pretty great job at BYU.
He was about to get fired a few years back.
Several years back, but point taken.
Okay. All right, let's go next with, this Virginia Duke game. I mean, shouldn't that be the Music City Bowl or something? I mean, this is a conference championship game.
Maybe it'll be the Music City Bowl. And they just keep this matchup intact and
play it back to back.
Yeah.
Virginia's a 3.5-point favorite. I'm going with Duke taking the points.
Whoa. If Duke wins outright, John, are they going to be in the college football playoff, or will a second G5 team get into the playoff and the ACC's champion will be rejected? Because remember, you don't have to take 4 Power 4 champions. You just have to take 5 conference champions. If the committee wants to, if Duke, 5-loss Duke, wins this game, they don't have to take them. They could take a second G5 team. You think that would happen?
That's what I'm hoping for. Just add to the chaos.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I'm pulling for Duke. Nothing against Virginia.
What if Duke could name Lane Kiffin its interim coach for the playoff? You think committee would take him then?
He's good with quarterbacks, and Duke has a good one.
All right, so you're taking Duke in the points. I will take Virginia to cover the 3.5. What's next on our list, John? You want to go to the Big Ten?
Okay, let's go to the Big Ten. Let's see. Ohio State minus 4.5.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take Indiana.
You think they win outright?
I think they've got a shot. I think Ohio State just played its big game. This means a lot to Indiana. I think it means more to Indiana than it does to Ohio State. I think Indiana's still trying to prove itself. It feels like nobody thinks we're that good, and I think that's a big motivating factor here. So, Buckeyes, they're going to be a high seed. They're going into the playoffs anyway. So I don't think that they will be as psyched as Indiana will be.
I've been all aboard the Buckeye bandwagon really since week 1 and really since the preseason. If we go back that far. I'm not getting off the bandwagon now. I've seen nothing that makes me want to get off. I like Indiana. I think these might be the 2 best teams in the country, although Texas Tech would like a word, and perhaps someone from the SEC would like a word. I'm not so sure, but I'm not getting off the Buckeye bandwagon now in crunch time. So I'll give the 4.5 and take Ohio State, which leaves us to the SEC Championship, a rematch of a September game in Athens. Alabama, Georgia. We've seen this matchup before. Not just
yes,
this
we
year.
have. And Kalen DeBoer is 2-0 against Kirby Smart. I don't care about that. I care that I think Georgia has gotten better, and I don't think Alabama has, at least not as significantly. I think Alabama might have peaked a little earlier in the year, maybe with that win over Georgia. I like Georgia given the points.
Alabama loses this game. Are they in the playoff?
Yes. Greg Sankey would not allow, he'd pull the SEC out of the whole MCA if he thought his playoff team would be penalized for losing that game.
Okay.
I mean, do you think it would be denied a playoff bid?
Well, I probably shouldn't ask the question because we're recording this before the rankings come out,
Oh,
which
that's
really
right.
sort of
Okay.
puts me into a pickle. So it's a
Yeah.
fair question to spin back at me, John, since I asked you, but I realize that our listeners will now have the knowledge of what the rankings are as they listen to this. So I probably shouldn't speculate before seeing those rankings because I think that I'll see where the Alabama is in the rankings, and then I'll form an opinion whether they need to win or at least be close in this game. A blowout loss, I think, would leave Alabama vulnerable. Close loss, well, we'll see where they are in the rankings after we finish recording this episode. John, that leaves us. Well, I got to make my pick. I'm going with Georgia as well. I think they win. I think they cover the 2.5-point spread, cover the Iron Bowl. Alabama doesn't look to me to be a team that's getting better. I know we can talk about how difficult it is to win the Iron Bowl on the plains, etc. Well, we also saw Alabama struggle against Oklahoma. We also saw Alabama struggle against South Carolina. So it's not just an Iron Bowl problem. Now, Georgia also didn't look great against Georgia Tech. So, bottom line is, I'm not so sure the three best national championship contenders aren't in conferences outside the SEC. But in this particular game, I'm with you. I like Georgia. I'll give the points, which leaves us needing to pick a G5 game as our lock of the week. John, I have little doubt that you're headed to the MAC, right?
Wrong.
Whoa, upset.
Well, yeah, you didn't your scouting report's a little off there. I am about the MAC, but I'm about the worst of the MAC, not
That's
the
true.
best.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If UMass were in this game, I'd know you'd know whom I was picking. Uh, my pick will be North Texas, given 2 points against Tulane.
You are taking them to cover?
Yes.
See, I told you you'd like that guru, Eric Morris.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Once I called him a guru, I feel like that cemented your lock of the week. You were probably leaning that way anyway, and then you heard guru and
Oh yeah.
perked up a little bit.
Cement, in my opinion. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Has there been any side of Hugh Freeze in Club Guru lately?
No, he felt bad for him. He tried to use his key card the other day, and green light never came on.
Interesting. Kennesaw State came through for me on my lock of the week last week,
Yeah.
John, and I'll ride the hot hand. Jerry Mack, coach there, probably going to get hired somewhere else. Maybe by the time you're listening to this, he's already been hired somewhere else. That's fine. Jerry Mack can inspire the troops on his way out the door. He's no Lane Kiffin. Jerry Mack's going to cover that 2.5-point spread at Kennesaw State in the Conference USA Championship. I guess I should mention who they're playing. They're playing Jacksonville State. Doesn't matter who they're playing. Kennesaw State came for me last week. They've been coming through in the Conference USA all year. It's a Friday night special. I like Kennesaw State to cover the 2.5. You like that pick, John?
No.
Well, you
I
didn't
don't
even
want
give
to
me a no.
elaborate. I just don't like it.
Fair enough. We don't need to elaborate any further. Thanks for listening on this edition of SEC Football Unfiltered.